The UK property market is constantly changing. What was a great investment in 2024 might flop in 2025. And over the past 5 years, I've been involved in over £30 million worth of property transactions in the UK, which has helped me learn which area to jump on and which areas to completely avoid. So I'm going to take you through the 5 places that I would not invest in 2025. Going from bad, not ideal, to worse. Oh man. At number 5 on our list, we have a place that's definitely not the worst if you can afford to buy there. This place is incredibly expensive, with the average house price coming in at £520,000 compared to the UK average, which is £266,000. Now you might think that this means significantly higher rental income, but the yields are actually pretty crazily low. They average around 2 to 4%. When we take that into account with higher stamp duty and mortgage payments, you could very easily find yourself in negative cash flow every month. Plus, you can forget about Airbnb because this place has a special rule in place that says you can only advertise your Airbnb for 90 days of the year. If you haven't guessed it by now, it's London. Now, the reason that London isn't lower on the list is because you can be pretty sure that the value of your property will go up a lot over 10 or 20 years. You just need to be sure that you can hold on for that long, because low rental yields, Airbnb restrictions, crazy high mortgage payments don't exactly promise a lot of cash flow. Now, the next city was the place to invest in a few years back. Investors were snapping up properties left, right and centre, turning them into HMOs and banking some serious returns. But then something called Article 4 came along, and this new rule basically said that you had to get approval from the local council and go through planning to create a HMO. Now, not every area has this in place, so you need to know your way around these local regulations. But I've seen investors get excited about areas like this only to get stuck with the property that gives them low returns because they can't actually change it into a HMO use class. If you're not careful, you could end up wasting your money without even realizing it. So the next place that you should definitely not buy is Blackburn. All the Article 4 changes have completely stunted the growth in the area, and it doesn't look like it's going to pick up anytime soon. So for now at least, it's best to steer clear. Just before we move on to number 3, if you want a more detailed breakdown of the best and worst places to invest in the UK, you can sign up to the Property Investment Playbook in the description and get access to a bunch of free tools and resources. So at number 3 today, I'm going to be a bit sneaky and including a few places in here at once. Now, these areas are best avoided because they are basically a terrible investment decision. I work with lots of people who ask me if one or more of these spots are a good location to invest in, and I will always tell them no. While they might seem affordable, they rely heavily on something that is unreliable, which makes them an incredibly risky purchase. With low rental yields, stagnating house prices, and massive oversupply, you'd be actually crazy to buy in one of these places. What I'm talking about are holiday homes in declining areas. Places like Blackpool, Great Yarmouth, Weston-super-Mare, Morecambe. These towns have tons of economic issues and little chance of much future growth in the area. Plus, they're already so oversaturated with holiday lets that even when peak seasons roll around, you'll face a pretty tough competition. Investing in holiday lets can be good if the area is right, but it needs to be somewhere up and coming that gets tourists all year round, in my opinion. Now, number 2 on the list might catch your eye because it's one of the cheapest places to actually buy in the UK, which actually sounds pretty good in theory. You'd assume that with a low house price, then your yields might be really good, but the yields actually in this area tell a different story. The average house price here is £135,000, but the average rent is only £515 a month. So if you buy here, you're looking at a return of less than 5%, i.e. if you put £100,000 of your money in, you'll probably make £5,000 per year back or less. And usually you should be aiming for at least 7% unless you're buying in incredibly expensive areas. So just because it's cheap doesn't make it good. And not only will you get lousy returns, but there's also been loads of crime in this area recently, which means that the people who jumped in to buy as cheap as possible are facing some serious headaches regarding their tenants. Either they can't find people to rent, or the tenants that they do find are pretty dodgy. Now, in the past, I've had investors insist on buying in places like this against my advice, and what's happened? Within 6 months of renting their property, the place was completely trashed. and it ended up costing them £18,000 to fix, which actually, if you worked it out, wiped out 13 years of rental profit. So yeah, moral of the story is don't base everything on purchase price, because if you invest in the wrong place, it doesn't matter how cheap the house was, you won't make any money. So where is it I'm talking about? This place is Middlesbrough. Investing here will get you crap rental yields, and on top of that, the value of the property is likely to drop. So when you inevitably get fed up with your tenants and try to sell, you still probably make a loss. It's not exactly the win that you were hoping for. And our final city is actually one that you may not be aware of, but it's in Scotland. Now, investing in Scotland is a whole different ball game to investing in England, because the process of buying and selling there is much more complicated and, honestly, in my opinion, a bit riskier. For example, if you make an offer on a place in Scotland, you're legally bound to follow through with that purchase. You can't change your mind or back out like you can in England. So if you're not familiar with how it works, I'd strongly recommend doing your research before just jumping straight in. But with no signs of economic recovery and falling house prices, you're looking at a very real risk of getting a negative return on your investment. And to get more specific, there is one city that looks to be particularly bad. The oil and gas industries there used to be absolutely booming, but then there was a significant downturn, and since then it's been a bit of a different story, and the economy has taken a massive hit in recent years, which means that house prices have dropped by 6 to 7%, and with the industry not looking like it's going to bounce back anytime soon, there's little to no chance of capital growth. And that's why, in my opinion, the worst place to invest in 25 would be Aberdeen. That said, there are a few cities that I'm very, very excited about in 2025, and I'm personally going to be investing in this year. So to find out which cities they are, sign up to the Property Investment Playbook, and you can check out our 2025 predictions for the best places to invest. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because I'll be making some predictions for the market over the next few weeks for 2025.